"Please don't take off my clothes," begged the young Apache, but the cowboy did, changing everything. He had been walking since before sunrise, though he no longer knew how many hours had passed. The land stretched wide and silent, broken only by dry grass, scattered stones, and the long shadow of distant hills. His steps were slow, uneven, and heavy, as if the earth itself were pulling him down. Every breath burned his chest. Every movement sent a sharp reminder through his body that he was hurt and alone. The young Apache man had lost count of how many days it had been since he last saw his people. Time had blurred into pain, hunger, and fear. He remembered running at night, the sound of shouting behind him, the crack of weapons echoing across the dark. He remembered smoke rising into the sky and the cries of elders telling everyone to scatter. After that, there had only been the land and his will to stay alive. His clothes were torn and stiff with dried blood. A deep wound on his side had been poorly wrapped with cloth ripped from his own shirt. He had tried to clean it with water from a shallow stream, but the fever still came in waves. Sometimes the world tilted and he had to stop and kneel, pressing his hand into the dirt until the spinning passed. He knew this territory was dangerous, not only because of the harsh land, but because of who lived beyond the hills. Cowboys, settlers, men with guns and horses. Since he was a child, he had been taught to watch the horizon, to listen before moving, to trust only his own people. Outsiders brought broken promises and suffering. That lesson had been carved deep into him by stories and by experience. As the sun climbed higher, his strength faded. He followed the faint line of a dried riverbed, hoping it would lead to water or shade. His lips were cracked, his vision blurred at the edges. He told himself to keep moving just a little farther, just until the sun leaned west. He could not stop. Stopping meant lying down. Lying down meant not getting back up. He did not hear the horse at first. The wind shifted, carrying a new sound across the open land. A slow, steady rhythm. Hooves. His body reacted before his mind did. Fear surged through him, sharp and sudden. He staggered off the riverbed and crouched behind a cluster of rocks, pulling his knees close despite the pain. His breath came fast and shallow. He pressed his hand over his mouth, trying to silence himself. Through the narrow space between stones, he saw the rider. The cowboy moved at an easy pace, as if the land belonged to him. He sat straight in the saddle, hat low against the sun, eyes scanning the ground ahead. His clothes were worn but clean, his boots dusted white from the trail. A rifle rested across the saddle, close enough to reach without effort. The Apache man's heart pounded so loudly he was sure it could be heard. Every story he had ever been told rose up at once. He imagined being chased, tied, questioned, or worse. He had no strength left to run, no weapon to defend himself. If the cowboy saw him, there would be no escape. He closed his eyes and waited for the sound of hooves to pass, but the rhythm slowed. The horse stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than any noise. Slowly, carefully, the Apache man opened his eyes again. The cowboy was looking directly at the rocks. For a moment, neither of them moved. The cowboy was older, with lines around his eyes and mouth that spoke of years spent under the sun. His face was calm but alert. He did not raise his weapon. He did not shout. He simply sat there watching. The Apache man felt his legs weaken. He knew hiding was useless now. He pushed himself upright, swaying as he stood. His hands trembled, but he forced them open and lifted them slightly, a sign he hoped would be understood. The cowboy slid down from his horse, slow and deliberate, keeping his movements steady. He left the reins loose, trusting the animal to stay. He took a few steps forward, then stopped, leaving space between them. "Easy," the cowboy said. His voice was low and even. "I ain't here to hurt you." The words meant little to the Apache man, but the tone reached him. Still, fear wrapped tight around his chest. He took a step back, then another, until the rocks pressed into his spine. The cowboy's eyes dropped briefly to the wound on the man's side. He frowned, not in anger but in concern. "You're hurt bad," he said. "You ain't gonna last long out here like that." The Apache man shook his head. He did not trust the concern he heard. Too often, kindness had been a mask. He thought of elders who had believed promises and never returned. His breathing grew uneven as the fever surged again. The cowboy noticed the way he swayed. "You need help," he said gently. "Water, rest." At the word water, the Apache man's throat tightened. He was so thirsty it hurt to swallow, but he did not step forward. Instead, he lowered himself slowly to the ground, sitting with his back against the rocks, as if showing that he had no strength left to fight. The cowboy took that as permission to move a little closer. He crouched a few paces away, keeping himself at the man's eye level. He set a canteen on the ground between them and pushed it forward with his boot. The Apache man stared at it. His hands twitched. Every part of him screamed that this was a trick, yet his body ached for the water more than it feared the man. He reached out slowly, fingers brushing the metal. He half expected the cowboy to grab him, but nothing happened. He lifted the canteen and drank in small, desperate swallows, water spilling down his chin. Relief washed through him, almost painful in its intensity. When he lowered the canteen, the cowboy was still watching quietly. "My name's Samuel," the cowboy said after a moment. "Most folks call me Sam." The Apache man did not answer. He did not offer his own name. Names carried power, and he was not ready to give any away. Sam nodded as if he understood. "You can rest here for a bit," he said. "Sun's too hot to be walking anyway." The Apache man leaned his head back against the stone. The sky above seemed too bright, too wide. His eyelids felt heavy. He fought the urge to sleep, knowing how dangerous it could be to lose awareness near a stranger. Sam glanced at the wound again, his expression tightening. "That needs cleaning," he said. "It's infected." At that, the Apache man's body tensed. His hand moved protectively over his side. He shook his head hard, a clear refusal. Sam raised both hands slightly. "I won't touch you unless you say it's okay," he said. "But you gotta know, if we don't deal with that, it's gonna get worse." The Apache man looked away, jaw clenched. He had treated wounds before. He knew the smell of sickness, the heat under the skin. He also knew what it meant to be vulnerable in front of someone who might not see him as human. The wind moved through the dry grass, carrying dust and the distant cry of a bird. Time stretched between them. Sam sat back on his heels. "I lost someone once," he said quietly, more to the open land than to the man in front of him. "Didn't get help in time. I don't aim to watch it happen again if I can help it." The Apache man studied him from the corner of his eye. He did not know if the words were true, but something in Sam's voice held weight. Not pity, not command, just weariness and resolve. Still, trust did not come easily. It never had. As the sun drifted westward, shadows lengthened. The Apache man's strength continued to drain. Each breath felt heavier than the last. He realized with a quiet sense of dread that he might not survive the night without help, no matter how much he feared accepting it. Sam stood and moved back toward his horse. The Apache man stiffened, afraid he was being abandoned, or worse. But Sam returned with a small bundle, cloth, a tin, and a knife. He placed them on the ground and stepped back again. "I'll stay right here," Sam said. "You decide." The Apache man looked at the supplies, then at the vast land around them. He was alone either way. The choice before him was not between safety and danger, but between two kinds of risk. Slowly, painfully, he nodded once. It was not trust, not yet, but it was the first crack in a wall that had been built over a lifetime. And neither of them knew, in that quiet moment under the open sky, that this meeting would change the path of both their lives in ways neither could yet imagine. The sun was already sinking when the work began, and the heat of the day slowly loosened its grip on the land. The young Apache man sat very still, his back pressed to the rocks, his eyes fixed on the ground in front of him. Every sound felt louder now, the soft scrape of boots on dirt, the faint snort of the horse, the wind brushing through dry grass. His body ached, and his thoughts moved in slow circles, pulled down by fever and fear. Sam knelt a few steps away, careful not to cross the invisible line between them. He opened the small tin and poured a little water into it. He tore a strip of clean cloth and dipped it in, then held it up so the Apache man could see. His movements were steady, unhurried. He did not rush, as if time itself had learned to wait. The Apache man's jaw tightened. He shook his head again, a sharp movement that sent pain through his side. He wrapped his arm tighter around his body, guarding the wound. His breath came faster, shallow and uneven. In his mind, old warnings echoed. Never let them see your weakness. Never give them a reason. Sam noticed the change at once. He did not move closer. Instead, he set the cloth down and leaned back slightly, resting his hands on his knees. "All right," he said softly. "We can take it slow." The Apache man watched him from beneath lowered lashes. He tried to read the cowboy's face the way he had been taught to read tracks in the dirt. There was concern there, yes, but also something else. Patience, maybe even respect. Still, fear stayed close, like a shadow that refused to leave. Sam reached for the canteen again and offered it, not pushing it forward this time, just holding it where it was easy to see. "Small sips," he said, "helps with the fever." The Apache man hesitated, then nodded once. He took the canteen and drank carefully, forcing himself to slow down. The water cooled his throat, but the relief did not last. Heat still burned beneath his skin. His head felt heavy, like it might tip forward on its own. When he handed the canteen back, his hand brushed Sam's fingers for a brief moment. He flinched at the contact, pulling away quickly. His heart raced, but Sam did not react. He only capped the canteen and set it aside. "Thank you," Sam said. The words surprised the Apache man. He was not used to being thanked by men like this. He shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to do with the feeling that rose in his chest. It was not quite hope, not yet, but it was something softer than fear. The light changed as the sun dropped lower, painting the land in long shadows and muted colors. The air cooled, and with it came a strange quiet. The Apache man felt the pull of sleep again, stronger now. His eyelids fluttered and he had to fight to keep them open. Sam noticed. "You can rest," he said. "I'll keep watch." The Apache man looked up sharply. Resting meant closing his eyes. Closing his eyes meant trusting someone else to stand between him and danger. His whole body resisted the idea. He shook his head. Sam did not argue. He stood instead and walked a short distance away, then sat with his back against a low rise of earth, far enough to give space, close enough to be seen. He pulled his hat lower over his eyes and settled in, as if he had all the time in the world. The Apache man studied him for a long while. He listened to the sounds of the evening, the slow breathing of the horse, the soft rustle of fabric as Sam shifted his weight. Nothing felt threatening. Nothing happened. The land simply existed, wide and open, holding them both. Gradually, exhaustion won. The Apache man's head drooped. He told himself he would only rest for a moment, just enough to ease the pounding in his skull. His eyes closed. He dreamed of running. In his dream, the land stretched on forever and his legs felt strong again. He could hear voices behind him, but they were distant, fading. He ran toward the sound of water, toward the promise of safety. Then the ground shifted beneath his feet and he stumbled. He woke with a sharp intake of breath, his body jerking upright. Pain flared in his side, stealing the air from his lungs. For a moment he did not know where he was. Panic surged. Sam was there in an instant, standing but not touching, his hands raised slightly. "Easy," he said. "You're all right, just a bad dream." The Apache man's eyes darted around, taking in the rocks, the darkening sky, the horse. Reality settled slowly. He pressed his hand to his side, feeling the warmth of the wound. The pain was worse now, sharper, like fire under his skin. He let out a low sound, half breath, half cry, before he could stop himself. He hated that sound, hated how weak it made him feel. Sam's face tightened with concern. "It's getting worse," he said. "I know you don't want help, but we're running out of daylight." The Apache man swallowed hard. He looked down at his clothes, stiff with dirt and blood. His thoughts tangled, pulled in opposite directions. Pride told him to refuse. Survival whispered a different truth. He remembered his mother's voice from long ago, telling him that strength was not only about fighting. Sometimes it was about choosing to live, even when the choice was hard. Slowly, he nodded again. Sam let out a quiet breath, relief plain on his face. "Thank you," he said. "I'll be careful, I promise." He moved closer now, but still slowly, giving the Apache man time to pull back if he chose. He picked up the cloth and the tin, wetting the fabric again. He paused, waiting. The Apache man looked away, his jaw clenched, his hands gripping the dirt. He nodded once more, sharper this time. Sam worked gently. He did not rush. He spoke softly as he went, not about the wound but about simple things. The weather, the long trail he had been riding, the way the stars would look once the sky went dark. His voice was steady, almost soothing, like a low song without a tune. When the cloth touched his skin, the Apache man hissed in pain, his muscles tensing. He fought the urge to pull away. He focused on the sound of Sam's voice, on the cool night air against his face. The pain was sharp, but it was clean, different from before. He realized with a strange mix of fear and relief that Sam knew what he was doing. Minutes stretched on. The sky deepened into shades of blue and black. Stars began to appear, one by one, bright and distant. Finally, Sam leaned back, his hands stained with dirt and blood. He wrapped the wound carefully, securing the cloth with practiced movements. When he finished, he sat back and wiped his hands on the ground. "That should hold for now," he said. "We'll need to check it again come morning." The Apache man let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. His body sagged against the rocks, drained but lighter somehow. The pain was still there, but it felt different now. Manageable. He looked at Sam, really looked at him for the first time since they had met. The cowboy's face was tired, marked by years of sun and wind, but his eyes were steady, honest. The Apache man spoke then, his voice rough from disuse. He said his name quietly, as if testing the sound of it in the open air. Sam smiled just a little. "It's good to meet you," he said, and he meant it. The night settled fully around them, cool and calm. A small fire crackled nearby, its light flickering over stone and skin. The land watched in silence as two strangers sat under the same sky, bound now by something fragile and new. Trust was not complete. It would take time. But it had begun to grow, slow and careful, like a seed pushing through hard ground. And for the first time in many days, the young Apache man believed he might live to see another sunrise. Morning came slowly, as if the land itself was careful not to wake the young Apache man too quickly. The first light touched the rocks, turning them pale gold, and the air carried a cool calm that had been missing for days. He opened his eyes with effort. For a moment, he did not remember where he was. Then the ache in his side reminded him. He did not panic this time. He lay still, listening. The night fire had burned down to warm ash. Somewhere nearby, the horse shifted and breathed. A bird called from the distance. Everything felt quiet, steady, safe, at least for now. He turned his head slightly and saw Sam sitting a short distance away, his back against a stone, hat pulled low. The cowboy looked asleep, but his posture was alert, like someone used to resting without fully letting go. The sight stirred something unexpected in the Apache man's chest. Gratitude, maybe, or disbelief that someone had stayed. He tested his body slowly. His legs felt weak but not useless. When he pressed gently near the wound, there was pain, but it no longer felt like fire spreading under his skin. The cloth Sam had wrapped around him was still clean and firm. The fever had eased. His head felt clearer than it had in days. He sat up carefully, wincing, and drew a slow breath. The smell of morning, cool dirt, ash, and dry grass filled his lungs. He had not realized how close he had come to dying until now, when life felt possible again. The movement woke Sam. He lifted his head, eyes sharp for a second, then softening when he saw the Apache man awake. "Morning," he said quietly. The Apache man nodded. "Morning." His voice sounded stronger than the night before, though still rough. Sam noticed it too and smiled faintly. "How you feeling?" "Still hurt," the Apache man said honestly. "But better." "That's good," Sam replied. He stood and stretched, then walked a few steps away to check the horse before returning. He knelt near the Apache man, careful again not to crowd him. "Let me take a look if that's all right." The Apache man hesitated, then nodded. He trusted Sam more than he had yesterday, but trust still felt like thin ice. Sam worked gently, loosening the cloth and checking the wound. He frowned slightly, then nodded to himself. "It's cleaning up," he said. "You're lucky. Another day like yesterday and it might have been different." The Apache man looked away. He knew that already. Luck had played its part, but so had the man kneeling in front of him. He said nothing, but the silence carried meaning. Sam rewrapped the wound and stood. "You need food," he said. "Can't heal on empty." He handed over a small portion of dried meat and bread. The Apache man accepted it, though his appetite was weak. He ate slowly, chewing carefully, feeling strength return in small pieces. As they sat there, the sun rose higher, warming the land. The Apache man watched the horizon, half expecting danger to appear at any moment. Old habits did not fade quickly. Sam noticed where his gaze went. "You're worried someone's following you," he said. The Apache man nodded. "Always," Sam considered that. "I haven't seen signs of anyone else," he said, "but this land, it carries memories, hard ones." The Apache man glanced at him. "You know that?" Sam met his eyes. "I've seen enough to know some places don't forget what happened on them." The words surprised the Apache man. They were simple, but they showed understanding. Not full understanding. No outsider could truly know, but more than he had expected. They sat in quiet for a while, sharing the space without needing words. Then Sam spoke again. "Where are you headed?" The Apache man hesitated. He had no clear answer. Home felt far away, maybe gone. The land he once knew had changed, or perhaps he had. "I don't know," he said finally. Sam nodded. "That's fair." He pointed west. "There's a small settlement a day's ride from here. Not many people. Some are decent. There's a doctor who knows wounds." The Apache man stiffened. The idea of a settlement brought back fear. Too many eyes, too many questions, too much risk. Sam raised a hand. "I'm not saying you have to go," he said. "Just telling you what I know." The Apache man appreciated that. He thought about the choice before him. Stay alone and risk the wound turning bad again, or step closer to a world that had never been kind to his people. Before he could answer, a sharp sound cut through the air. Hooves. Both men froze. Sam's hand moved slowly toward his side, not reaching for his weapon, but ready. The Apache man's heart began to race. He pushed himself upright, ignoring the pain, his eyes scanning the land. The sound grew louder. A rider appeared on the ridge to the south, silhouetted against the sky. Then another, two men, moving fast. The Apache man's fear returned full force. His breath shortened. "They're coming," he said. Sam studied the riders. His jaw tightened. "They're not from the settlement," he said quietly. "I don't like the way they're riding." He turned to the Apache man. "Can you walk?" "I can try," the Apache man said. "That may not be enough," Sam replied. He thought quickly, then looked at the horse. "Can you ride?" The Apache man hesitated. He had ridden before, but not like this, not injured. Still, there was no time to argue. He nodded. Sam moved fast now, but not in panic. He helped the Apache man to his feet, steadying him when his legs shook. He guided him to the horse and helped him up, adjusting him carefully so the wound would not strain too much. "Hold on," Sam said. "I'll lead us out." He took the reins and began moving them away from the ridge, angling toward a narrow stretch of land between rocks and brush. The horse moved at a controlled pace, faster than a walk but not a run. Behind them the riders shouted. The sound sent a chill through the Apache man. He tightened his grip, his body tense. Memories rushed back, running, hiding, loss. Sam kept his voice calm. "Stay with me," he said. "We're not outrunning them, we're losing them." He led the horse into rough ground where sharp stones and uneven paths slowed pursuit. Dust rose around them. The Apache man winced as the movement jostled his side, but he held on, forcing himself not to cry out. At last, the shouts faded. The sound of hooves grew distant, then disappeared altogether. Sam did not stop immediately. He continued until the land opened again, quiet and empty. Only then did he halt and let out a breath. "You all right?" he asked. The Apache man nodded, though his face was pale. "Yes." Sam helped him down carefully. They rested there for a long moment, letting their bodies calm. The danger had passed, but the truth was clear now. "You can't stay out here alone," Sam said gently. "Not yet." The Apache man knew he was right. The land was wide, but it was no longer empty. He looked at Sam, really looked at him, and saw not just a cowboy, but a man who had chosen again and again to protect instead of harm. "I will go with you," he said at last. "For now." Sam's shoulders eased. "All right," he said. "We'll take it one step at a time." As they prepared to move again, the Apache man felt something shift inside him. He had begged once, feared once, trusted a little. Now he had chosen. The road ahead was still uncertain. Pain, memory, and risk waited there, but so did the chance to live. And sometimes that was enough to change everything. The journey west began slowly. Sam did not push the horse hard, and the young Apache man was thankful for that. Every movement still sent a dull ache through his side, and the ride stirred pain he could not fully hide. Sam noticed, of course. He always noticed. When the Apache man shifted or drew a sharp breath, Sam adjusted their pace or chose smoother ground without saying a word. They traveled mostly in silence. The land spoke enough on its own. Long stretches of open earth rolled beneath a wide sky. Low hills rose and fell like tired waves. Sometimes they passed dry trees, their branches twisted and bare, standing as quiet witnesses to years of wind and heat. The Apache man watched everything. He watched the horizon, the ground, the shadows. Even now, even after all that had happened, his body stayed ready to flee. Trust did not erase old instincts. It only sat beside them, careful and uncertain. When the sun climbed high, Sam called for a stop near a cluster of rocks that offered shade. He helped the Apache man down from the horse and handed him water. They sat with their backs to the stone, the warmth seeping slowly into their bones. "You're doing better," Sam said after a while. The Apache man nodded. "I am." It felt strange to say it out loud, but it was true. He was still weak, still hurt, but he was alive, and he was not alone. Sam checked the wound again, his movements gentle and respectful. "It's healing," he said, slow but steady. The Apache man let out a quiet breath. "Thank you." The words came easier now. They no longer felt borrowed or forced. Sam met his eyes and gave a small nod, as if thanks were not something he needed to collect. As they rested, the Apache man studied Sam more closely. He noticed the small details, the way Sam kept his back to the rock so he could see open land, the way his eyes moved often, never settling too long in one place. This was a man shaped by caution, not cruelty. "You have been alone a long time," the Apache man said. Sam was quiet for a moment. "Yeah," he said finally, "long enough to get used to it." The Apache man understood that kind of loneliness. It was not the absence of people that hurt the most. It was the absence of belonging. They moved again when the heat eased. As the hours passed, the land slowly changed. The ground grew firmer. Signs of life appeared, old wagon tracks, broken fence posts, bits of wood half buried in dirt. Each sign made the Apache man tense. Each sign meant people. As evening approached, smoke appeared on the horizon, thin and gray. The Apache man stopped walking. His body stiffened, his eyes dark with worry. "That's the settlement," Sam said calmly, "still a ways off." The Apache man swallowed. "Many people." "Not many," Sam replied. "And we don't have to go straight in. There's a place nearby where we can stay the night." That helped. The Apache man nodded, though his heart still beat faster than it should. Memories pressed close, crowded spaces, sharp looks, words he could not understand but still felt. They reached a small, abandoned shed near dusk. It leaned to one side, its wood weathered and gray, but it offered shelter. Sam checked it carefully before letting the Apache man step inside. A fire burned low outside as night settled in. The Apache man sat wrapped in a blanket Sam had brought, staring into the flames. Fire had always been a place of stories among his people. Here, it felt different, quieter, heavy. "You don't have to go into the settlement," Sam said gently, as if reading his thoughts. "If you decide to leave tomorrow, I'll help you get back on your feet first." The Apache man considered this. The choice was his, truly his, for the first time in a long while. No one was forcing him. No one was pulling him by fear or hunger. "I will go," he said at last. "But not alone," Sam nodded. "You won't be." Sleep came easier that night. The Apache man still dreamed, but the dreams were softer. He saw faces from his past, not running this time, but standing still, watching him. When he woke, his chest ached with memory, but it did not crush him. Morning brought movement. They approached the settlement slowly. The Apache man stayed close to Sam, his eyes lowered, his shoulders tense. A few people noticed them. Some stared, some whispered. Sam's presence seemed to quiet most of it, but not all. They reached a small building where a doctor lived. An older man with tired eyes examined the wound. He spoke plainly, without judgment, and treated the injury with care. The Apache man endured it in silence, gripping the edge of the table until it was over. "You'll heal," the doctor said, "but you need rest, proper food." Outside, the Apache man breathed deeply, as if the air itself tasted different after surviving that place. Days passed. He stayed near the edge of the settlement, never fully inside it. Sam brought food, checked on him, spoke with others when needed. Slowly, strength returned to the Apache man's body. He could walk farther now. He could stand without shaking. But healing was not only physical. At night, he sat alone and thought of his people. He did not know where they were or if some still lived. The land felt emptier without them. Even surrounded by others, he felt like a stranger walking between worlds. Sam joined him one evening, sitting quietly beside him. "You don't belong here," he said, not unkindly. The Apache man looked at him, surprised. "And that's all right," Sam continued. "You're not meant to," the words settled gently. "Where do I belong?" the Apache man asked. Sam did not answer right away. "That's something only you can decide," he said, "but you don't have to decide today." The Apache man looked out at the darkening land. He realized then that the fear he once felt around Sam had changed into something else. Respect, gratitude, even trust. "You saved my life," he said quietly. Sam shook his head. "You saved it by choosing to live." The Apache man thought about that. About the moment he had nodded instead of turning away. About riding instead of running. About stepping into a place he feared. Maybe strength had many shapes. When the time came to leave, it was not sudden. They prepared carefully. Sam packed supplies. The Apache man tested his body, moving, stretching, listening to what it could handle. On the morning of departure, they stood at the edge of the settlement. The Apache man felt no anger toward the place, no love either. It was simply a place he had passed through. "Where will you go?" Sam asked. "East," the Apache man said. "There are lands I know." "Maybe others like me," Sam nodded. He reached out and placed something in the Apache man's hand, a small knife, clean, balanced, "For protection," Sam said, "and for work." The Apache man closed his fingers around it. "Thank you." They stood there a moment longer, two men shaped by different lives, brought together by chance and choice. When the Apache man turned and walked away, he did not feel like he was running. He felt like he was moving forward. And behind him, Sam watched until he disappeared into the land, knowing that some meetings do not last forever, but they last long enough to change who we become. The young Apache man walked east as the morning light stretched across the land. Each step felt steady now, grounded. The pain in his side had not vanished, but it no longer ruled him. It reminded him to move with care, to listen to his body, to respect the limits that healing required. He welcomed that reminder. It meant he was alive. The land opened before him, familiar in shape if not in detail. He read the ground the way he always had, broken grass bent by wind, stones shifted by hooves, faint lines where water once ran. The world spoke to him again and he listened. He felt less like a stranger here. The wide sky did not press down on him anymore. It felt like a roof he understood. As the day warmed, memories returned, but they came gently this time. He remembered the night he had begged in fear, his voice small and desperate. He remembered how shame had burned hotter than the wound. He had believed that moment would follow him like a shadow, but it did not. Instead, it had changed shape. It had become the place where his path turned. He stopped near a low ridge and sat, drinking water and resting in the shade. He thought of Sam, not with pain but with quiet respect. The cowboy had not asked for thanks or loyalty. He had offered help and left the choice where it belonged. That mattered more than the help itself. When the Apache man rose and continued, he carried more than supplies. He carried the understanding that kindness did not always wear a familiar face. That truth settled deep, steadying him. Days passed. He traveled carefully, resting often, moving mostly in the early morning and late afternoon. He found small sources of water and places to shelter from the heat. Each night, he built a fire only when needed, keeping it low and controlled. He slept lightly, alert but not afraid. On the fourth day, he saw smoke in the distance. This time it did not send panic through him. He observed it, measured it. The smoke rose straight and calm, not scattered by hurried movement. A camp, not a chase. He approached slowly, announcing himself with a call used among his people when entering unknown space. From behind a stand of brush, a figure stepped into view, then another. Two Apache men older than him, their faces lined by sun and time. Their eyes were cautious but not hostile. They spoke. Names were shared. Stories followed, careful at first, then fuller. They had been traveling for weeks, gathering others who had been scattered. Some had been lost. Some had found new places to stand. All carried the same quiet grief. The young man listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, he told them of his wound, of being alone, of meeting a cowboy who chose to help. There was silence when he finished. Not disbelief. Thought. One of the elders nodded. "The world is wider than we were taught," he said. "Danger lives there, but so does choice." That night the fire burned a little brighter. Food was shared. Stories circled the flames. The young man felt a warmth he had not known in a long time, not just from the fire but from being seen. In the days that followed, they traveled together. Slowly, carefully, the group grew by one, then another. Not many. Enough. They avoided crowded paths and moved through land that still remembered them. The young man helped where he could. He gathered wood, watched the edges, shared what he knew of safe ground. His wound continued to heal. Each morning he cleaned and rewrapped it, patient and steady. He thought of Sam's careful hands and mirrored the same respect for himself. Healing, he learned, was not something you rushed. Weeks later, they reached a place where the land dipped and water ran clear. Trees stood nearby, offering shade and shelter. The elders decided to rest there for a time, to listen, to decide what came next. The young man stood at the edge of the water one evening, watching the surface catch the last light of the sun. He thought of the question Sam had asked him, "Where do you belong?" He realized now that belonging was not always a place. Sometimes it was a direction. Sometimes it was a choice you made again and again. That night, he dreamed differently. He dreamed of walking without running, of standing without fear, of faces from his past meeting him with calm eyes. Seasons shifted. The group stayed through the changing of the land, then moved again. The young man grew stronger. His body returned to him fully. His confidence followed. Others began to look to him for guidance, not because he asked for it, but because he paid attention, because he listened. One evening, as they prepared to move on, a traveler passed near their camp, a lone rider moving slow. The young man watched from a distance, his body alert but calm. When the rider came close enough, he recognized the shape, the posture. Sam. The meeting was quiet, no rush, no sudden movement. Sam dismounted and tipped his hat, the same small gesture as before. The land seemed to hold its breath. "You're walking strong," Sam said. The young man smiled. "You kept your promise," Sam nodded. "So did you." They spoke for a while, sharing what had passed since they parted. Sam did not ask to stay. The young man did not ask him to. Some paths crossed more than once, but they did not merge. Before leaving, Sam reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small bundle. He handed it over. Inside was clean cloth, a little medicine, and a note written in careful letters. Simple words. A reminder to keep choosing life. The young man thanked him, not with heavy words, with truth. When Sam rode away, the young man did not feel loss. He felt completion. Years later, the story would be told in quiet moments around small fires, not as a tale of fear, but of change. Of a time when two men met on hard ground and chose something different. The young Apache man would become an elder himself. He would teach the young ones how to read the land, how to listen, how to stand. And when they asked about the scars on his body, he would tell them the truth. That fear can be loud, but choice can be louder. That dignity is not something others can take unless you let them. That sometimes, the moment you fear most is the moment that saves you. And the land, wide and patient, would carry the story forward, unchanged in its telling, alive in its meaning.